Today, we're going to talk about autonomy.
True autonomy, if you ask me, should be where the human being does not need to be engaged at all.
So is it like the more advanced we're getting, we're kind of like redefining AI?
Computers against the world-class poker players. And they played enough hands over 21 days to make it, they were 8 hours a day, 21 days, they've played poker. And the computer won.
Welcome back to Matrickz Tech Talk. Today, once again, we have Aditya Srinivasan as our guest. Like last time, we're going to have an exciting conversation today, and today we're going to talk about autonomy. So Aditya is currently working at AUTOMOTIVE based on Bangalore, a company that makes robots. So Aditya, welcome back to Matrickz Tech Talk.
Thank you, Hassan. It's a pleasure. Great pleasure.
All right, so without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about autonomy. How would you define autonomy? Because we have several terms. We have AI, a very broad term. We have machine learning. We have deep learning. And we have autonomy, autonomous vehicle. We're talking about autonomous vehicle, autonomous robots, autonomous weapon even. So all these things will be on their own, autonomous. So let's start with the very basic definition of autonomous. When will you call a certain entity autonomous?
Great question. It's an interesting thought because on the one hand, if you look at even commercial aircraft, if you're going from Frankfurt to San Francisco, probably 90% of the flight time, the pilot is not engaged and the aircraft is flying itself. Is that an autonomous flight? I would say no, because the pilot is there, he is present, and he is going to take over at any instant. So I would call it not an autonomous flight.
So it's kind of like level 3.
Well, it is like level 3, and it is like level 3. And it's an interesting thought you brought up, because true autonomy, if you ask me, should be where the human being does not need to be engaged at all. Because that's when the machine can operate without even the supervision of a human being. That is true autonomy. Now, again, that's a shade. The level 3, as you rightly pointed out, is somewhere in between. You have a level 2, which is a driver assist, and a level 4, which is truly autonomous, and there's a gray area in between.
Got it. So I like your definition. Autonomy is when there is zero involvement of humans. So I can just sit back and relax. I don't have to worry about anything, is autonomy. So do we have any system that is fully autonomous today, an entire system?
I believe we do. I'm trying to think of some good examples, but systems we have trained ourselves in the last few years to think of autonomy only in vehicular or aircraft terms. But it's true, if you visit an auto assembly OEM, you see incredible autonomy there, where you have robots picking up parts, putting them together, welding them, and even inspecting them, and moving the vehicle to the next station. Now, those robots do not have a person standing by to do the welding just in case. They are truly autonomous, if you ask me.
Wow.
And that industry, the robots for assembly, for welding, and increasingly now they're getting deployed even in cooking, in large food chains and stuff. There's one robot which is making burgers. It's called Flippy. Now, these machines are truly autonomous because they have a task and they go around doing it, and they don't ask for human help. You can argue, though, Hassan, that it's a repetitive task, and is it an intelligence task? Now, you brought in artificial intelligence. Does that spot welding robot need artificial intelligence? Probably not. because it's doing a repetitive task. It's got a vision system which just sees that a piece is in front of it, it goes welds it. An inspection robot, on the other hand, I would argue might be intelligent because it's making a decision. It's making a value judgment. It's looking at, let's say, finished quality of paint, and it can have artificial intelligence systems behind it to make a value judgment. Is it, 70%, 90%, and does it meet a passing criteria?
Got it. This is a very interesting topic that you brought up. Like a repetitive robot, you're saying that that's not intelligent. That means when you have to make some decisions, it's intelligent. Now, the start of AI goes all the way back to when we had some intelligence system with some Boolean formulas, called it AI. Back then that was artificial intelligence. So is it like the more advanced we're getting, we're kind of like redefining AI and saying, okay, repetitive task is no intelligence, or is the definition evolving with time?
It is evolving. Yes, it is evolving. Let's try to think. You're taking me down a very interesting path. So let me try to come up with an example where it's really evolving. When Google first recognized picture search as a feature they'll provide, and they even made mistakes like calling some human a gorilla. There were misclassifications of that order of magnitude. At first, that's obviously a very intelligent task. Now, if you fast forward and go 5 years away, and it's become dull routine for that kind of picture recognition, will it still be intelligent, or will it be like that spot welding machine where we say that it's just doing it again and again? I would say that the photo recognition will always be intelligent because it's got the value of a human brain behind it in terms of classification. So I think there's degrees of gray here, and some tasks will ultimately seem very mundane, but some of them will have deep learning, artificial intelligence, because there's an element of choice, of decision making.
Gotcha. Now, let's move on to what you're doing now. I was very excited to hear in our last conversation about the company you're with right now. So you're building robots. It's not just programming robots, you're building robots right from the scratch. So tell us a little bit about that.
There's a picture behind me which you see, which is the robot is in the shape of a tug. It pulls up to 1 ton, 1,000 kilos of material in a trolley, and it is deployed in automotive and e-commerce applications at the moment in India. It's very exciting that this entire technology stack got built by a small startup in Bangalore. And the robot has the intelligence to navigate completely autonomously in parts that have been pre-programmed, pre-mapped. So the robot does the mapping itself. It wanders around a factory or a facility, builds up an HD map, and has the capability to haul goods with no supervision between point A, point B, point C. You can summon it with a button. If there's a Wi-Fi button, you press the button and the robot comes to you. A worker hitches up the load and the robot goes and delivers it. It can also work under the supervision of a fleet manager, which dispatches different robots to different tasks and moves material completely autonomously. The robot does not need any guide wires. It does not need any markers in the floor. It's got a 3D LiDAR. And as you know, I came from the LiDAR industry. And it's exciting to see an actual, real, live deployment of 3D LiDAR in great value, because that helps the mapping and the localization and allows the robot to move around a factory.
Is that the only sensor, or do you also have a camera or other sensors in the robot?
We've got a few more sensors. There's 2 cameras, and there's a wheel encoder, which counts fractional revolutions of the wheel. And the system can put all of these together to conclude exactly where it is to an accuracy of about 2 centimeters. You need to be very precise in this kind of robotics application. In a vehicle, you're fine if you are within, let's say, half a meter of where you think you should be. In a robot of this sort, which goes and docks to a conveyor automatically, the precision needed is much higher. So we are working at a 2 centimeter accuracy.
Gotcha. This is super exciting. So the application is moving materials right now.
That's right. It's moving materials. You know, Hassan, it's interesting. I got into this. I learned that just in the US alone has 6.5 million workers employed in the task of moving material.
6.5 million workers. Wow.
And what's happened after the pandemic is, the great resignation. People did not go back to the traditional jobs they were in and want to do something different. And there's a big shortage of workers. In the 80s, in the last century, the 1980s, we used to think of robots coming and replacing humans and taking away our jobs and stuff like that. Humanity has reached the point where there are not enough humans to do the work that needs to be done. And so robots are becoming an augmentation, a staff augmentation method. Costs have also gone up. There's many, many jobs in the US where the cost of labor has risen to the point where it makes so much sense to have a machine do it. And there's a labor shortage.
This is an exciting point because right now I'm actually working on a book. It's more around autonomous cars. There is a chapter I'm working on right now, which is ethical chapter. And certainly the question comes like millions of Uber drivers, truck drivers, taxi drivers are going to be replaced by a software. What will happen to them? And the interesting point you just mentioned that there is a shortage of it. Now, you mentioned in your industry there's like 6.5 million only in the United States, right? So now what do you think? Let's talk a little bit about it since this came up. I really love your argument that you're saying that we have a shortage of labor. I mean, human being, they don't want to do the repetitive task. Like we need robots for augmentation. That's a fantastic argument. I love it. What will actually happen to when those people who are working in these fields, be it in 6.5 million you gave example, or the Uber drivers, truck drivers, taxi drivers, what do you think would be the consequence of it?
I think that the planet is structured around value. Now, will those Uber drivers ever truly get replaced? I think is questionable, not only because of the difficulty of the problem of vehicular autonomy in public roads, but also value. Now, what I mean by that is, let's try to give you some really good examples. I'll give you two. If you think of a shuttle bus, which makes a circuit around an airport, right? It goes to the parking lot to the airport and back. It seemed like a no-brainer that you can save cost by replacing the driver with a robotic machine. And it seems obvious. Now, a friend of mine who's a CTO at one of these shuttle companies said he gave up on it. And I asked him why. It surprised me. I thought it was really exciting. He says, look, when you get into it deeper, you realize that, yes, you are saving $15 to $20 an hour on the bus driver. On the one side, you're increasing the cost of the machine probably by $50,000 to $100,000 because of the sensors, the software, the development effort, which you have to load on every machine. So there's a cost. So the return on investment is low, but more importantly, it says when they did trials, they found that, let's say you're an old person and you come up to the shuttle bus. A driver is a human being. Even if it's not in his job description, he'll jump out and help that passenger load the luggage onto the bus. A robot doesn't do it. And there's this hidden value in some tasks where human beings just routinely can do something which is not in their job description, whereas a robot cannot. So the spot welding machine is a great example where the robot can do 100% of its task. Moving material in a factory, you can hitch and it goes delivers. It does 100% of the task. Driving a shuttle bus, the robot does not do 100% of the real task, which includes the human interface of helping an old person move the luggage on. In the Uber driver case, this example goes further. The Uber driver takes the car home, he parks it in his garage. You don't need to pay him for parking. You don't need to pay him for cleaning the car. You don't need to pay him for taking it off for maintenance. Now, the industry is comparing the cost of that driver at $15 or $20 an hour to the cost of the robot. But there's all these hidden costs, which I am not sure have been fully factored in. And when you put that together with the complexity of driving on open roads where there are children, dogs, et cetera, I have a feeling that vehicular autonomy is far away.
Wow, that is super exciting because we have Elon Musk saying since 2019, we're going to have level 4, level 5 this year, and hadn't happened. And you're saying that we are far away, which I totally agree, which I resonate with what you're saying, because this is I mean, how long did we take to get complete autonomy or partial autonomy in the aviation industry, and which is a much simpler task compared to driving on the road. So it's far, far away. I fully agree with you. Now, you brought a very interesting topic. Let's talk about it. The human interface, like the human in the loop. Now, I was reading a very interesting book on autonomous weapon the other day. It's called The Army of None. So there's this chapter where they're talking about in 1983, September 1983, the world was in a biggest crisis the humankind have ever seen. The world was in the midst of Cold War, right? So the Soviets, they developed a nuclear launch detection system. And in some days in September, I think this was September 3rd, their system detected a nuclear launch. And that just means counter-strike. If you detect a nuclear launch from the other side, you strike back. That would mean that nuclear warfare and probably end of civilization. So there was this gentleman, Lieutenant Colonel Petrov in the Soviet army, who was thinking, wait a minute. His intuition was telling him something different. Wait a minute, I want to double check. He didn't launch the counter-strike. He double-checked it. He really wanted to see what's going on. And it turns out that it was a false alarm. So human in the loop saved mankind from distraction, saved us from nuclear warfare. So I really, really like the way you have argued the human in the loop. Now, let's come back to robot industry, right? Burger making robot, right? Now, it is interesting that the robot is making the burger. Don't you think the human interface is also missing from that angle, or will that really flow? Where is really, you gave an example that in a load-bearing scenario, it's fully, you don't need the human interface. Where is the borderline? Till what extent we need human, and where can we say, hey, we don't need human here? And is it going to change with time, the involvement of human?
Great questions. I think, let's take the second one first. I really think it will change with time. Our expectations of any system today will change 10, 20 years from now as systems evolve. So I think it will change with time. The human interface, the human in the loop, I think is needed where there's a value judgment, where there is a human interaction or a value judgment to be made, where we don't yet have smart enough systems, smart enough AI to truly do it. And the ultimate example of that value judgment is in not launching a nuclear strike, right? That's the highest level example of that. In the burger flipping machine, I'm certain there'll be a human taking the order still. Now, if you take it all the way and have a machine where you just walk up, press a button, and the burger comes out and you take it and walk away, you've not said hello to a human being. You've not thanked them. I don't think we as humans are quite ready for that yet. I've been to airports where they have automatic coffee machines. It's a large vending machine. You hit a lot of buttons and you can get your macchiato from it. It's not the same feeling as standing in line and getting a cup of coffee from someone who passes it to you. So I'm not certain. And again, that's an example of time where we'll get used to. We do take Cokes from vending machines, but do we want a macchiato and croissant from a vending machine? I just personally don't feel ready for that. I feel ready for a burger flipping machine in the background to make that burger perfectly and probably have the sensors to get it exactly right. The medium rare burger is going to be perfectly medium rare. That I think, and again, these are just values, Hassan. It will change with time. The bigger issue is how will artificial intelligence evolve and what truly will make it intelligent? What will be that pace of evolution where a system can be truly intelligent? The game of Texas Hold'em, the poker game of Texas Hold'em, is more complicated than chess because chess is deterministic. You see everything. And therefore, a computer is just amount of computing power that's needed to predict all the possibilities and everything is in the open. In Texas Hold'em, there are two cards that you see, and each person has two cards. So the computer does not have all the information. It's facing an indeterministic problem. And today, they have a championship where they pitted computers against the world-class poker players. And they played enough hands over 21 days to make it, they were 8 hours a day, 21 days, they've played poker. And the computer won. Yeah. So the artificial intelligence has reached a point where in a game where there are unknowns to the computer, completely unknowns, it had the ability to beat world champions. Oh. And that, I think, is the birth of real intelligence.
I love that example because in that example, we thought that the human intuition will probably win over pure numbers. You're just calculating probabilities, but we forgot that there is a camera which can actually recognize micro expression from your face and kind of also put some intuitive things in the calculation. And it was amazing that the example you gave that, the computer beat us not only in chess, in poker. Let's talk about two things now. First of all, AI, right? Intelligence, IQ. In my opinion, IQ will be commoditized. It's already commoditized. It's a commodity. We already know that people with IQ, they're not the highest earners in the society. Your IQ on top does not mean that your income level will go high. So IQ will be commoditized. It's already been commoditized. What makes us different is the EQ, our emotional intelligence. Now, even in the poker game, where your intuition and all those matter, we were beaten by computers. Now, can you tell us, what do you think, what would be the definition of, like in the beginning, we talked about the definition of intelligence is going to change. And can we also go toward emotional intelligence in machines? And how would that be?
I think ultimately machines will gain empathy and emotional intelligence. It's so difficult to understand because, for example, you go backwards on the scale and say, do our dogs and cats have emotional intelligence? And intuitively, the answer is yes. They have a different kind of intelligence, obviously. They don't have language skills. They don't have the communication skills. Do they have the ability to think ahead? It's a question, and it's not been answered very satisfactorily. They seem to, but they don't. I think the machine intelligence or the machine emotional intelligence will be different from ours, but I think in the entire universe, the wider universe, there's probably many types of intelligence which we don't understand yet. That is extraterrestrial life forms. Will they have the same kind of intelligence as us or completely different? We don't know the answer. So I feel that machines are getting very, very advanced, and we're just at the beginning. 100 years from now, artificial intelligence will look completely different. We have no idea today what it will look like. And I think that there will be a stage where emotional intelligence that you're bringing up will come out of a machine.
I think this will be more than only emotional intelligence the way humans will perceive, because you mentioned a very good, they'll have empathy. Now, in order for a machine to have empathy, you have to read Yuval Noah Harari's book, Homo Deus, when he is talking about that the machine will know everything about it. It's not the way we empathize. We try to picture ourselves in other people's position, but we don't have information. That machine will know everything. They'll know about your genetics, your DNA, your heart rate, if you're in a parasympathetic mode or sympathetic mode, your emotional state, everything. So calling it empathy, in my opinion, is understatement. It's more, they will know everything. They'll know about you more than you do. With that aspect, the emotional intelligence that machines will play will far exceed human.
Yes. You might have enough sensors in your body and understand you well and understand your blood chemistry well enough to make the perfect suggestion at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that, hey, listen, I think you want your espresso macchiato with 2 shots. What do you say? And reach the point where it doesn't even have to ask you, it just produces your 2 o'clock espresso macchiato with 2 shots, because it understands that you're not going to sleep till 10 o'clock. It'll be fine. And it'll at 6 o'clock in the evening, it'll have enough sensors in you and know you enough to say, well, maybe a slightly sweetish wine with your dinner today. And by the way, dinner is this steak, and it'll go well with this wine, and serve it up to you. Now, I don't think that there's fears that, oh my God, the machine is taking us over. I don't think so. The machine is augmenting my life. It's serving me just the right meal with the right wine. Why would I say no? I mean, I like that. I like that idea that a machine will have both the sensors, the information, as you said, knowledge of us, know us so well that it can provide us a service which only today we can get from a foreign partner.
You gave really benign examples, and I agree with you. Why should I say no to that? But I can't help bringing up some controversial examples. So allow me to quote Yuval Noah Harari again. What he says is, it's a fantastic way of putting things. If I pay you $1 million, if a billionaire pays you $1 million and tells you, hey, all you have to do is to let me brainwash you, and in return you get $1 million. Almost everyone in the planet will say, no, I don't want to be brainwashed for $1 million, because freedom is everything. I mean, you're giving up your freedom, right, in exchange of $1 million. $1 million does not give you any value if you're being brainwashed. Now, the same billionaire comes and tells you, hey, I'm going to let you use a free service as long as you want to. In return, when you use it, you're going to get brainwashed. We all seem to do it. Like, example, Facebook, Twitter, and all the social media things, right? So we all seem to do it. Now, the brainwash part, when you know everything, you know about my DNA, my blood chemistry, my emotional state, the brainwashing can be potentially up to a level that we cannot even imagine. Of course, this is a fictitious scenario based on what happened in real life. I mean, be it Cambridge Analytica or what have you, based on whatever have happened in the past. And people tell me that nobody's going to live in metaverse. We need real life. I mean, I ask them, how much time do you spend virtually today in social media? It's just going to be augmented, right? So what do you think about these scenarios where I completely with you that I don't mind giving my information, but how about the taking away freedom, the potentiality of taking away your freedom?
It's an incredibly difficult question that humanity has to figure out. Unfortunately, in many cases, the train has left the station. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, and those, as you said, are examples of what's coming. Sensors are going to be built into us. The machines will gain the kind of intelligence I talked about and you're talking about. There are two bad scenarios. One is the getting something free and getting brainwashed, as you put it. The second is bad actors, evil states using some of this against their citizens. And we're into the realm of all the bad science fiction that was written in the last century, the bad scenarios in science fiction written in the last century. We're in the scenario of being on the brink of some of those becoming really possible. And it's already scary. And I don't think we have government controls smart enough to manage this. So we are not going to be able to look to political leadership to guide humanity along the right path. And so it's going to be human beings in leadership positions in the private industries. It's going to be human beings en masse voting with their feet. And that is probably the hope that we have to have. The choice that you make and I make and every human being makes will determine the path of what's to come. And there are worries. And, we've been talking Elon Musk several times, and he is extremely worried that artificial intelligence will be the worst thing that happened to mankind. It's entirely possible that bad case scenario you're talking about plays out. On the other hand, if we want to take a potentially optimistic cut at it, it is possible for systems to evolve in a way that they augment our experience, but they don't deny us our choices, don't take away our freedoms, and don't behave in a way that's bad for us. And the problem here, Hassan, is it's such an incredibly complex task that we don't know who's going to manage this.
Right. And I like when you said that, the government, the politicians are not able to solve this problem. We see this problem already in autonomous vehicle. The lawmakers, they just simply do not have enough understanding of the problem in order to place laws. So they depend on the industry to come up with a standard and laws. So this problem will remain. And like you mentioned, that this should augment our life, not, do something bad to us. Now, good and bad is a function of time, right? It's like, what was taboo in the last century is becoming a norm today. I mean, think about legalization of marijuana, right? It's becoming a norm today. People went to jail for this, and now we're legalizing it. I often give this example of dating, online dating. In the 90s, online dating was creepy. This is so creepy. Then it became kind of unromantic. No, I don't want to do that online. This is unromantic, but it's still acceptable. Creepy to unromantic. Now it's the norm, right? So the fear is that we'll forget what is good and bad and we'll just accept things as a norm. And all these things will come to us not telling us that, hey, I'm going to brainwash you. They're going to say, okay, I'm going to give you a better health. Allow me to put a sensor in your blood vessels. I'm going to give you better health. And which will, probably they'll look for cancers and many other diseases and give us information, and we'll have better life. And with that, of course, the other things will come too. And I can't agree with you more that there is no brake pedal. There's no way you can stop it. It's going to happen, even if you like it or not. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it is going to happen. It is going to happen. It is scary, because it can take all sorts of wrong directions and hurt all of humanity or millions of people. And the guidance systems, the guardrails are very difficult to imagine because there's vast sums of money involved, and business leaders are going to make choices which favor their bottom line. And they don't necessarily have to be, and we don't have the ability of governments to truly look ahead and take care of this. I think humanity, we are talking very big topics here, Hassan. I'm not even sure I'm qualified to, but...
Yeah, neither am I. It's just AI is going to impact, is going to change. The bottom line is, again, quoting from Yuval Noah Harari, the only constant that we have throughout history and will remain constant in the future is changes. Everything is going to change. The only difference is the rate of change in the next 10, 20, 30 years will be remarkable. It's not going to be comparable to the last 30 years. It's going to be much faster. We're going to change so much. We're going to, trends were like, a generation thing, but the trends are now like 2-3 years. So it's going to even shorten, and we're going to change so much. And artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is going to play a big role.